What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on Let's Play Castlevania Harmony of Despair. This is part 2, and we're going to go on to the next chapter, which is Lord of Unseen Strings. And this stage has to do with the Garden of Madness from Dawn of Sorrow, and it also has to do with the Chapel Tower, or no, the... oh, what's it called? It's the dummy, and the boss is the Puppet Master.
You too shall be my puppet.
Yep. I like the English dub in this game. That's one thing I do like about this game, though, is that it includes the English dub for Soma Cruz, Julius Belmont, and all of them. It's like, wow, because for some reason, I don't know why they did this, but like, Dawn of Sorrow came out in Japanese. Like, there was no English dub for that game, so no matter what version you had to deal with the Japanese voice acting. And to be honest, that kind of bugged me a little bit, because it's like, well, the other two games, Portrait of Ruin and Order of Ecclesia, came out in the DS, and they both had English dub. I don't know why they didn't make an English dub for Dawn of Sorrow, but it's whatever, I guess. Okay, am I supposed to go over here? I don't know. Ooh, white dragon. Knock it off. Knock it off. Please. Knock it off. Thank you. I love the music in this game. Like, I already liked it in Dawn of Sorrow, but man, they really upped it up with this game. Oh, man. I love the music in this game. Trust me, if this game worked off of, like, XP for every time you killed an enemy, my entire list of characters would be, like, maxed out right now because of how much I played this. But, of course, this game works off of sub-weapons, not enemy XP, like other Castlevania games, which is unfortunate. Ooh, Berry Cooler. Oh, I forgot you're a succubus. Trying to look like Yoko. Oh, speaking of Yoko, little fun fact about this game. It turns out there's a DLC character, and he was the Chapter 11 character, and his name was Getsu Fuma. He's not from Castlevania, he's just from another game Konami made. But fun fact was, there's a voice file for Soma where he calls out Hammer's name, leading to believe that Hammer used to be, or was going to be, playable in this game. Why they ditched the idea, I have no clue. I mean, it's possible that they would have had to make up moves for him, they would have had to figure out weapons, because he wasn't playable in Dawn of Sorrow, he wasn't playable in any of the games. And you don't really see him use a weapon, so, I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but it still would have been pretty interesting to see, you know, Hammer be playable. But then again, if they were going to put Hammer in here, like, again, why not put Nathan Graves in here? Why not put Juiced Belmont? You know, where are these characters? Like, all they had to do was just port the sprites from the game and just put them in here. I don't see why they couldn't put those characters in here, and it really bugs me. Okay, where are we on the map, actually? Oh, we need to go, we need to go back. We need to go back, because then I'm just going to sit here wasting time. But, alright, where am I going from here? Okay, so I am in the right direction. Okay, chest. 500 gold. Screw you, game. Screw you. So, I want to talk about something real quick. I am going to be doing a Let's Play of Castlevania 64 in the future, and I'm also going to be doing Circle of the Moon as well. If you're a really hardcore Castlevania fan, you're probably looking at me going, oh, what the hell are you talking about? Weren't those games considered non-canon by IGA? Yes, they were. But that was back in 2003 when Lament of Innocence was being released. And he said that because he felt like it would clean up the continuity a little bit. But in the pre-order of Portrait of Ruin, in one of the booklets, he puts the timeline in there again, and he includes Circle of the Moon in the N64 games, and he puts them back in the story. Now, the only game that's not in the story anymore, and it will never be in the story, for obvious reasons, is Castlevania Legends, because he thinks it's an embarrassment of a game. A female Belmont just has no place in the Castlevania universe, especially at that time period. It just doesn't make any sense. So I can understand why he'd want that, out of the timeline. But with Circle of the Moon and the N64 games, those can work. Those games can work. Because with Circle of the Moon, you had Carmilla resurrect Dracula, and then you got Quincy Morris, who's training Nathan Graves and Hugh Baldwin as their apprentice, and they're not using the vampire killer, no. They're using the Hunter Whip, which is a completely different whip, but it still has the power to defeat evil. So you have that game. It takes place after Symphony of the Night. And now we get to Castlevania 64, where we get a really interesting piece of storytelling. So you probably are familiar with Castlevania 64 being with Reinhard Schneider, okay? Well, here's an interesting little tidbit about Reinhard. Reinhard Schneider is actually Schneider Belmont, or at least he was going to be called Schneider Belmont in the production of the game. But there's a story for that, too. Schneider Belmont was teased as a kid by his peers because a lot of people didn't believe that he was part of the famous bloodline and that there's no way that he could be a Belmont or anything like that, so he was just kind of embarrassed. So later on, he kind of just changed his name to Reinhard Schneider to separate himself from that, but he was still known for having good whip skills. He was good. He was tied to the Belmont family. He had good training, and he eventually set out on his adventure to stop Dracula. And with Dracula, we reach another little interesting tidbit, is because you're also familiar with Malice. Malice is the first reincarnation of Dracula, the second one being Soma Cruz. Malice was an interesting idea because it's a good plot twist, and it's a good way to get the main character to think that you're a good guy and then completely screw him over at the end, which is what they did. And the Dracula in that game, the one you fight before Malice, is, I think his name is Gaius D. Ray or something, but he is just some dude who purposely disguised himself as Dracula to, distract you, and he did that on purpose. So Malice is actually Matthias, just a reincarnation. And I thought Malice was an interesting idea, but then again, if you're playing the game and you listen to his name is Malice, okay? That the root word alone should give you an idea that he's not a good guy. Hello, Malice, give me a break. I am supposed to go over here. But yeah, those games can make sense. They work in the storyline, and they make perfect sense. Now, I get, oh my god, I understand why some people don't want to accept them in the timeline, because Circle of the Moon is really hard. Because there's no shops, it's difficult to find potions, and it's a difficult game. Same with Castlevania 64. For being the first 3D Castlevania, the platforming was garbage, but I'll give Castlevania 64 this. The atmosphere of that game was just absolutely creepy. That's one of the only Castlevania games where I was genuinely creeped out by some of the stuff they did. Because Castlevania 64 is one of the only Castlevania games where vampires are a recurring enemy. And oh my god, they look creepy, man. They go out of their way to make them look like vampires. Big, sharp, bloody teeth, and oh man, that game was just creepy, dude. The music too, the way they construct the music, the atmosphere, sometimes it's silent, sometimes it's not, but then they got the creepy music. It's all really good, but again, I feel like the only reason why people hate that game is mainly because of the fact that it has shit platforming, and I agree, the platforming sucks in that game. It really does. I'm not gonna lie there, it really fucking sucks. Alright, where are we going from here? Okay, This is what I hate about this boss in this game, is that this boss just goes wherever he wants, and then you have to find a way to follow him, and it's just, oh my god. Oh, he's gonna go to this one. Okay. Oh, that's a dick move. Alright, there you go. There we go. And now I gotta find my way back. And that's the worst part about this boss, is that you gotta find your way back. Oh my lord. But yeah, those games do not deserve the hate they get. Castlevania 64 was a decent game for being the first 3D Castlevania. It had good storytelling, it had a really good atmosphere, but yeah, the platforming was really not something to be impressed by. Like, I was not impressed by that platforming at all. It's too easy to die in that game, and platforming was just not its thing. They were working on it, but they just haven't perfected it. Yeah, but Circle of the Moon, though, the fact that there's no shops, the fact that you can't buy anything or sell anything just makes it harder, considering that you have to use your potions, like, wisely. You can't just run around using up your potions like that, because then you're just screwed. You're screwed. And, I'm going to be talking about Symphony of the Night here in the next video, and why I think it's overrated, by the way, because Castlevania Symphony of the Night is, like amazingly overrated. And I already talked about this in one of my videos, but I'm going to go more in-depth, because I don't feel like I went in-depth last time. But I'm going to go in a better explanation for why I think it's overrated, and why it's not the best Castlevania game ever. But that was the second chapter, and in the next video, we're going to go ahead and do the third chapter. Alright, later.